Hello, I'm Jared.
And I'm Ebony, and this is his.
And hers, Warhammer 40K. Yay. This one is a little unfortunate. We have to use our old recording equipment. We've been having some audio trouble and some desyncs, and we haven't really been able to fix it, so back to using the old one, at least until we can get that sorted.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll do some sound editing.
Right.
I'll do some sound editing.
So in the meantime, this one might not sound as good as it normally does, but hopefully there won't be desyncs anymore.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about Dark Imperium.
Yes, Dark Imperium by Guy Haley. This is going to be a little bit different because Ebony and I read different versions of it.
And we read it at different times.
Yeah, kind of on purpose. So I read Dark Imperium and Plague Wars, well, the sequel, when they first came out. I want to say in 2018, 2017, sometime around then. And then in 2020, when they were moving from 8th edition to 9th edition, they made an update to when Dark Imperium was going to be taking place. They pushed it from 112 years after the fall of Cadia to 12 years.
Okay.
And that is the version that Ebony has read. There were a few other different changes, and I've put together a list of what some of those changes are. So we'll go through that and sort of give our differing thoughts on that based on when we read it and other information that we've picked up since.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah?
I thought it was fine.
Okay.
I like getting to spend more time with Guilliman.
Yeah.
We are kind of spirit animals-esque, the two of us. I like getting to watch him organize things and execute things. So
I thought your spirit animal was Rogaldorn.
It's in action, it's Rogaldorn, but in practice, it's Guilliman, because I like to think that I would be, politically correct and appropriate for the appropriate people at the right time, and I just feel like Rogaldorn is Guilliman, but with none of that veneer. So, I could get behind both of them, but yeah, I prefer Rogaldorn, but I like Guilliman. I know it's fine. So we start out with Guilliman in this book. We start out with Guilliman fighting Fulgrim, which I was super excited about because I love Fulgrim.
Right. So
and because I'd never seen I knew Guilliman was in stasis, but I'd never seen that fight, so I was excited for that.
Yeah, so this is one of the elements that we kind of knew about ahead of time. We knew that Fulgrim and Guilliman fought, and that was how Guilliman ended up in stasis for 10,000 years, but it had never been shown before. So getting to start the book with that flashback and to see that scene was really cool.
Yeah, I loved it.
There were a few changes in that scene as well. So I believe in this version, the version that Eb read, Guilliman already had the Sword of the Emperor.
He does, yeah.
Which is like the flaming sword that his M41 model holds.
Yes.
In the original version, he was wielding the Gladius Incarnum, which is the sword that his 30K model wields.
Okay.
So I guess they made a change there to show after the Emperor was put on a golden throne, after Guilliman had sort of taken control of the Imperium, and become the Lord Guilliman, which, if we ever...
It's the title.
It is the title.
I know, because Belisarius calls Inferior, uses it, and Guilliman doesn't like it.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
That's how I know.
If we ever read the Beasts Arises series, you'll see more of that.
Okay.
But that's a different story. So yeah, then we cut to modern day. We cut to after the events of the Gathering Storm. So Cadia has fallen already. Crackworld Bile 10 has fallen apart, and Belisarius Cawl and Ivrain have journeyed to Macragge in order to reawaken Guilliman. And then Guilliman went on his journey, got captured by Red Corsairs, and eventually made it to Terra.
Yeah, you don't see any of that in this.
Nope.
No.
Nope. All of that is skipped over. All of that happens in the Gathering Storm campaign books.
Okay.
A reference to a couple other places, but are not detailed anywhere else.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I don't know, I missed it. None of that happened in this book. We kind of just pick up with him running sort of distribution of Primaris Marines and trying to get back to Ultramar, basically, which he does in the end. And it's nice to see him sort of doing the administrative stuff of running the Imperium. He is trying to choose a new, personal preacher. What is it called?
Oh, the priest militant.
That's right. He's trying to choose his new militant apostolic.
Militant apostolic.
Yeah, so he's doing that. Who's an interesting character that I'm into.
Father Matthew.
Yeah. We get some flashes into his historiator cadre, right? That's still a thing. He's sending up historiators.
Now, that was not in the original book.
Were there no historiators?
Because, historiators, in the sense that we kind of saw them in the Dawn of Fire series, did not exist yet. That was all introduced in Dawn of Fire, and Dark Imperium was rewritten to take some of that into account.
Yep. Yeah, no, I like seeing the historiators. I like that part of the Dawn of Fire storyline. And they're at a triumph at Ralkos, and they are about to disband a bunch of unnumbered sons and send them to their respective chapters.
Right. So in the original version, this was the quote end of the Indomitus Crusade. This was when it basically said, okay, we're done. All of the unnumbered sons, which were the original big legion-sized forces of mixed lineages of awakened Primaris, are finally being fully distributed to all of both existing chapters and the new chapters for the Ultimate Founding. The change in this book is it is not the end of the Indomitus Crusade. It is the end of the first phase of the Indomitus Crusade, meaning Imperium Sanctus, so just the half of the Imperium that is on this side of the Great Rift, is considered stable enough. And Guilliman is going to dissolve the unnumbered sons. The real reason he's doing it, though, is he's been getting a lot of pushback about Legion building,
Well, he's got thousands of giant Primaris Marines on his own ship going all over with him doing wars, and it looks like
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, it looks like he has a legion. So fine.
So in the Dawn of Fire series, we do see some of the Ultimate Founding chapters. It's kind of done piecemeal throughout the 12 years. The Triumph of Rukos is the last little bit of it.
Yeah, and so he wants to do this triumph and distribute these unnumbered sons so he doesn't look like he's building his own empire. And he also wants his militant apostolic to deliver this sermon, because he's also been getting a lot of pushback on the whole, he doesn't believe the emperor is a god, he doesn't think he's the son of a god, he's not a religious symbol, etc. And obviously the Imperium says no to that. And so he wants a sort of faith-adjacent mouthpiece, really, is what he's trying to get out of Frater Matthew, which I think is interesting. And it's interesting from Frater Matthew's perspective, because he believes Guilliman is the son of, he's really faithful, but also pretty sort of empirical. He, he's not ostentatious. He goes to war. So interesting, but I think a little bit dangerous if I were Guilliman, which we're going to cover probably.
Yeah. So when the book first came out, one of the big pushes amongst the community that everyone was talking about is Guilliman obviously was raised under the imperial truth. He does not believe in the power of religion and whatnot. And everyone thought, he was going to return and just
wipe it out.
And everyone was going to follow him. And you really see, and Frater Matthew, in a way, is the weakest version of this. The church just kind of says, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And we know you're wrong. It doesn't matter if you are the son of God. You are wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is, you'll see a little bit more of that going forward.
I also think from a practical perspective on his end, the Imperium as a whole and its relationship with the Emperor as a god, with a religion.
The Imperium is a theocracy.
Yeah, it's so integral to the functioning of the Imperium that it would be a complete dismantling of this society to suddenly be like, the Emperor is not a god, we're all about science and truth. It would take so much of his time to dismantle it that, chaos would eat the universe before he could get it untangled. And so he's just decided, I guess I'll just pretend that I agree with you.
Yeah.
As long as no one asks me directly.
Yep. So that's sort of one thing that we have. We also have Guilliman establishing Greater Ultramar, which I'm trying to remember. Is that shown at all in Dawn of Fire? I don't think so. I don't think
Ultramar
at all.
I don't think we're ever at Ultramar, which is cool because I've been in there in 30K sparingly, but never really spent a long time in Ultramar.
Ebony never read the Ultramarine series of books,
Mm-hmm.
which I think there's 5 or 6
Okay.
of them, where we see Ultramar, the 13 worlds of Ultramar, as opposed to the 500.
That's how I know it, because 30K, yeah.
Right.
So I think of it as the 500 worlds, and it's interesting because in the time that Guilliman has been gone, history has happened, and so there are planets that have left Ultramar. There are whole planets where they don't think they were ever part of Ultramar, right? It's, and so now there are not 500 worlds. It's kind of like a loose collection of like 20-ish worlds, something like that. And Guilliman is actively, like, in his own chambers trying to draw a map of Ultramar as he remembers it, which is also pretty cool. And so, he's trying to get the Ultramarines to bring all of these worlds back into the fold. In the meantime, Chaos is trying to invade Ultramar.
Yes, so the Plague War has started, which is Mortarion and the Death Guards attempt to assault Ultramar.
Only because Mortarion is salty that Guilliman has returned.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
We got to see the Death Guard side of this in Lords of Silence, where we saw Vorks meet with Typhus and Mortarion. Typhus doesn't understand why we're going after Ultramar.
I don't either. I agree with him.
Right. But that is sort of the events of this.
Yeah.
That is really the crux of the trilogy, I would say.
Yeah. So the Death Guard are invading Ultramar, so the Ultramarines have a whole active war front going on at Ultramar, and really sort of an envoy comes to Guilliman and is like, BTW, Ultramar is in trouble, we should go back there. And so Guilliman's a little bit on the fence about it. He doesn't want to immediately return to Ultramar because he doesn't want the Greater Imperium to think that he thinks Ultramar is more important than the rest of the Imperium, but it is also important to not let all of Ultramar fall to chaos.
So who does he send?
So he sends Felix?
No. Is it
No.
Calgar?
I thought he was already there. Marnius Calgar is at Ultramar.
Oh, I thought you were talking about who was doing the fighting.
Oh, yeah, no. All the Ultramarines are fighting at Ultramar, led by Marnius Calgar.
Yes.
But Guilliman and Felix of Primaris Marine are going there with some contingent of other Ultramarines that I assume he brought to reinforce.
Okay.
Yeah. So they go to Ultramar, and then Guilliman gets there and he's restructuring all the things. He reinstates Tetrarchs.
Yes.
Which have not been a thing for 10,000 years.
Well, there really wasn't the level of governance.
I guess there wasn't enough Ultramar to need 4 Tetrarchs or any Tetrarch.
5 now.
Is it 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of which is Felix, who's a Primaris Marine, and I think that's interesting.
Keep going.
Oh, keep going. So, but he doesn't make Marnius Calgar a Tetrarch. He makes Marnius Calgar, like, leader of Ultramarines, like Chapter Master.
Yeah, he remains Chapter Master.
So he's the leader, ostensibly, of Ultramar itself, but not of the entirety of the 500 worlds.
Yeah, so an interesting part of this book is we get to see Calgar kind of feel inferior alongside Guilliman.
Yeah, he's upset, and I think he feels like a failure. He feels like it's a failure of himself that Guilliman even needs to return to protect Ultramar, right? He feels like he's detracting his lord from protecting the rest of the Imperium.
Now, pre-8th edition, especially around 5th and 6th edition, Calgar was the guy. Like, the single most important space marine in the galaxy.
Oh,
like,
I didn't know that.
Chapter Master, you weren't really involved in 40K at the time. Chapter Master of the most important chapter.
Okay, sure.
And there's a meme online, it's old at this point, known as the Spiritual Liege.
Is it Marnius Calgar?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And people who are new to the hobby think it's Guilliman. It's not. It was Calgar.
Okay. I mean, he seems fine. We get to see a little bit of their fielding, plague marines, but they're also fielding, like, uprisings from human militia on the planets within Ultramar, and you get to see Calgar be a little bit pissed that the human soldiers are so crappy at their job.
It's a pretty great scene because these are supposedly, like, Ultramar-trained soldiers who are rebelling, and he's not impressed with their ability to rebel.
He's like, is this the best we got? Is this how you're training them here? What's happening? So that's interesting. And they don't kill all of those soldiers, which I guess is very Ultramarinian. The younger ones, they're going to try and like re-indoctrinate them, but the leaders of this rebellion, they have to kill them to make an example. And there's a little bit of discussion between Calgar and like a lieutenant about why you must kill some of them, but why you can't kill all of them. And it's just a little interesting bit of like Ultramarine thinking, I think.
That's true. We also, switching storylines, get an interesting look at basically the recovery after a Nurgle Death Guard assault.
Oh, I thought that was a good storyline.
Yeah, I thought, when I was first reading that, I was thinking about you. It's like, I bet when you eventually get here, you're going to really like this part.
I did really enjoy it. It's a little bit spooky. You're getting a little bit of sort of human guardsman level contamination with Nurgle-ness, and it's great. It plays out really well over the course of the book. I would say it's my third favorite thing about this book.
Yeah? Okay.
But it's really good.
What else have we got? We've got the establishment of the Wolf Spears, which is... This was kind of, at the time, the first Primaris chapter that anyone had really known about.
Space Wolves?
Well, no, like, period.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because, so, every edition... There's usually a starter set that comes out that is 2 armies, small box set you can buy, and there'll often be a story sort of tied to that. In 10th edition, it was Leviathan, which was Ultramarines against Tyranids. In 9th edition, it was Indomitus, which was against Necrons. In 8th edition, it was against the Death Guard. And Dark Imperium was kind of that beginner book.
Yeah.
So, in a way... It was written almost assuming this was your first introduction to 40K, which is why some stuff does feel a little dumbed down at times, I would say.
I guess, we had talked offline sort of about like how I would rate this book, and you were surprised by my rating. I won't give it away until you ask for it.
Right.
And I think that might have been a detractor for me, that this is not my first 40K entree, and so I just thought, oh, that's regular. Yep, that's how Ultramarines are. Yes, that's a Plague Marine.
I definitely recall when 8th edition was coming out, like immediately after, and people were asking, where should I start with this? Dark Imperium was on a lot of people's lists.
Okay. Yes, I guess it would be a good starter. It does cover sort of everything you need to know about the Imperium and everything you need to know about Space Marines, and it at least gets chaos on the board for you with Nurgle. I wouldn't be against it. And I think if you're starting in the space with Primaris Marines, it's a nice entry into Primaris Marines. I think we didn't talk about this storyline, but Felix, who becomes Tetrarch, like in the beginning, we get to see him leaving his like sort of
his squad of unnumbered sons.
Yeah, and it's very like heartwarming. They're all like friendly to each other.
Yep.
Especially that Bjarni dude.
Yeah, who will get a follow-up story. It's a short story about the Wolf Spears.
Yeah.
And I really like it. Also by Guy Haley.
Okay. Yeah, I like a Space Wolf. I think they have good culture. So I was like, I'm excited for Bjarni.
There were a few other sort of broader changes between the 2 editions. When it first came out, the term for Chaos Space Marines that was going around was Heretic Astartes, because that was the trademarked one. Personally, I hate it. I think because it does not roll off the tongue at all. I mean, it is very difficult to say.
Very technical sounding.
Yes. That has been replaced with Traitor Astartes, which I think is better. It's still not as smooth as Chaos Space Marines. You know, I get why they're doing it, and also it ties back to 30K a little more than I would like, but you know, that's part of it. It's because I don't think they can trademark the term chaos.
Yeah, it's just a word.
Surprisingly, I guess they can get away with heretic or traitor.
Seems weird because those are also just words. But okay.
I think it's tying it.
It's probably the unit.
Yeah. They also switch, and this is something that I did check in a couple of other newer books. So this is an ongoing change. They switched from metric to imperial. And a lot of people are not happy about that.
Interesting.
Yeah. There have been some good jokes about how, this just further shows the fall of the Imperium.
Yeah, I didn't notice, I guess, because I work in both of those units all the time, so, like, I was just like, whatever, yeah.
I couldn't tell you the exact reason why.
I don't know.
Maybe it was Brexit.
Maybe.
And then there's just a few other small word changes.
Okay.
They changed like cathedral to cathedrum.
Okay.
They like 40Kified a few more words.
Fair.
But yeah, that's
those are all.
That was Dark Imperium.
Do you have a score?
I do have a score.
What is it?
I would give Dark Imperium probably a 7.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I think this is sort of thinking about it now, after it's come out and it's been a series and it's been edited.
When you read it first, what did you think? Many years ago.
Right. I probably would have given it an 8.
Okay.
You know,
That's not where I'm at.
The fight scenes are definitely on the weaker side. Guy Haley's fight scenes are never exceptional, is what I would say. But, it was okay. As like bringing us into the era Indomitus.
Okay.
Even though the era Indomitus, we now started 12 years earlier, but,
I would have called it a solid 6.
Wow.
I could, like, maybe be stretched to a 7, but I just felt like really nothing happened. So it has this is a trilogy problem, where right when it's ramping up and things are going to be good, we're like, and join us next time where we fight Mortarion. And I'm like, great. So I just felt let down at the end because you don't achieve the goal of where you started. But also I don't know, it felt really regular. This is what I was saying about us saying it's better if you don't know anything about 40K. For me, I didn't learn anything that I didn't already know. My favorite parts of this book were Guilliman talking to the Call Inferior in the middle of McCragg's Honor, which is amazing.
Which we didn't really talk about.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It's the best part of the book for me. That's number 1.
I would say for most people that's number 1.
Oh, good. I'm not a crazy person.
So, Belisarius' Call, just to really fill this in real quick, had not been in a book prior to this. Like he was.
That would make it amazing for you. Yeah.
He was introduced in The Gathering Storm.
Okay.
He shows up a little bit in Fall of Cadia, not the novel, the campaign supplement.
Okay.
And technically, he doesn't really show up in this one either.
Isn't he in the novel though? Again, in the Necron on Cadia.
Yes, but that book came out
after
years later.
Okay, yeah.
Fall of Cadia came out, maybe a year or two ago?
Okay.
But the events of Fall of Cadia was 2017.
And he wasn't in that. Got it.
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
But Belisarius' Call's, first real introduction was in this book.
Okay. It was great.
Yeah. What was your number 2?
My number 2 is Mortarion's clocks.
Yeah.
Being in Mortarion's horarium, which was a word I learned reading this book, while he, used fungus to make phone calls to Typhus and Pegaz.
Word that he used.
It's like Mycetium profundus, something like that. It's definitely a fungus-adjacent word. And they use it to talk to each other because that's the most Nurgle thing ever. Yeah. And he's trying to set up whatever it is that he's trying to set up that he thinks is going to help take down Ultramar and take down Guilliman. So that's a really cool scene. I do still agree with Typhus that Mortarion's a crazy man. I don't know why are you at Ultramar? No reason, just because you're salty. But
yeah, and Nurgle, the god, does rank every single one of his followers, from 1 to infinite. Yeah. And number 1 is Typhus. Number 2, I think, is Mortarion, and number 3 is Kugath. So
says a lot about Mortarion.
That says a lot, right?
Yeah, Typhus is pretty great. And then my third favorite thing is the humans who
The
get
human
nerfed.
horror
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah. Although I really did like Felix and the rest of the Primaris Space Marines.
Now, I will say, the Death Guard representation in this, and really the Nurgle representation of this, is not great. This book does predate Lords of Silence, which is the definitive Death Guard Nurgle book.
Okay.
So I give it a little bit of slack. It hadn't really been detailed yet. I can't even remember if the Death Guard had a codex yet.
Yeah. It feels a little bit. There are parts where it's spooky and done right, especially with those humans, and then there are parts where it's a little bit caricature-y for Nurgle. So I was, lukewarm on it. But yeah, I guess I could call it a 7. What if I were to be pressed? If I had never read anything in 40K before and I didn't know anything about it, it might be an 8. So I guess I would agree with you if it had been new to me.
Okay, so Codex Death Guard did come out approximately the same time as this book.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and I started Plague War already because, get to the part where we fight Mortarion. So.
Well, hang on. I'm going to have her read Armor of Fate first.
Okay.
Personally, the best part of the Dark Imperium
you think so?
series.
Okay. It's on my Kindle. I haven't started. I did start. Okay. I did start.
That, it was written to fix a continuity error between the Gathering Storm series and Dark Imperium.
Okay.
Regarding Guilliman's armor that he wears. And essentially, in Dark Imperium, he takes off his armor, and he's walking around without it.
Yeah.
When the Gathering Storm first came out, it was explained, no, this armor is his life support.
He can never take it off.
He is still technically dead. The armor keeps him alive, Darth Vader style.
I see.
And this short story was written to fix that mistake.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll read that one. And since it's short, maybe I'll do it real quick.
Yep. All right, I
What's
think
next
that's it.
for us?
We're going to jump into Plague War, I would say,
Okay.
but we're also listening to the Morbus Conspiracy.
Yeah. We're reading an Eldar book.
Oh yeah, Lilith
Hesperax.
Hesperax.
Queen of Knives. Yeah.
Anything else? At some point, we're going to get to Above and Beyond.
Okay.
Which I'm really
the
excited
second
about.
Denny.
The second Outgun.
Yeah.
Book.
Okay.
Denny Flowers has a few other books prior to that.
I really like that book. I'm excited for that.
Nice.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yep.
Stay tuned.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.